What's up everybody? Today I'm doing a quick review on my speakers, the RCF HDM 45. My goal when I was shopping for speakers was to find the best portable speaker system that could provide me with the most bass so that I would not necessarily need a subwoofer. I'm a solo op DJ. I live on the second floor in an apartment, so I have to carry all my equipment down a set of stairs, and there's no way I'm gonna be able to do that with subwoofers right now. With that being said, one of the main reasons I bought this speaker was because how much I heard about how great the bass was for just a 15-inch box. I was looking for the best sounding speaker that had the smallest footprint and the lowest weight possible, and that's why I decided to choose the RCF HDM 45. This speaker is made of an all-plastic enclosure, and it weighs 48 pounds, which compared to a lot of the other top-of-the-line speakers I was seeing out there from JBL, from EV, those were all coming in around 60 pounds, so I was willing to pay more money if that meant easier portability. Basically, what my hope was that by spending more on my tops, I didn't have to buy a pair of subwoofers. Now, obviously, there's a lot wrong with that statement, and I've also found that out, and I wanted to talk about my experiences with that so far. Now, I'm not the most experienced guy when it comes to speakers. I only owned one set of speakers prior to buying these. That were the EV ZLX 15. It's definitely not a fair comparison, but when comparing an entry-level speaker like the EV ZLX 15s versus a top-of-the-line speaker like the RCF HDM 45, the main difference is in the horn of the speaker, and that's really what you're paying for. Now, this HDM 45 comes with a 4-inch voice coil, and I'm telling you, the highs and the mids that come out of this thing are crazy. Most of my gigs, I'm turning down the highs and the mids on these speakers because they are so powerful, it really dominates the sound of these speakers. So when it comes to overall loudness, those highs and the mids are just so powerful and so loud. I can cover crowds of 400, 500 plus with the highs and the mids. When it comes to the bass, there's not as big of a noticeable difference. I was thinking if I get this top-of-the-line speaker, I'm gonna get subwoofer-like bass coming out of this 15-inch speaker box. That really wasn't the case. Just to kind of drive the point home, I have a LD Maui 5 that has a 8-inch subwoofer. Just the presence of that dedicated woofer on the ground, you feel the bass way more than any situation where the woofer's up in the air and throwing the sound up at the level of the guests. Definitely, I think this one produces more bass than an entry-level speaker, but the difference in terms of my false expectations that this thing would be able to replace a subwoofer, that's really just not the case. So really, what I realized is that I was just a bit naive about how sound works, how speakers work, and having an expectation that this could replace the need for subwoofers just isn't the reality. Now, the big difference, like I said though, is where that voice coil comes in. I mean, this thing is a game changer in terms of the quality that you're getting for the highs and the mids. I turn down the highs and the mids for most of my music and for most of the crowds that I'm working with, just because they're so powerful. But it's nice to know that I have that headroom to go up on the highs and the mids if I really need to project that sound out there. I've used these in airplane hangars, in gymnasiums, and these things can throw sound across the entire large venue, which in an entry-level speaker, I just wouldn't be able to do. Through my experience owning these, that's what I realized I'm really paying for. It's the clarity and the power of those highs and the mids. When you hop on the mic on these, you can hear your voice through crystal clear. That's just not the case with my entry-level speakers. I also think that's how RCF has become infamous for having a more harsh sound. It's just because the horns are just so powerful on these units. Unless you EQ them by turning down the highs and the mids, they can really dominate the sound on these speakers. But like I said, it's nice to have that headroom in case you need it. So to summarize the positives for the speaker, for the portability, its size, as well as the weight coming in at 48 pounds, pound for pound, I don't think that there's a better point source speaker out there. When comparing amongst the RCF line itself, 745, 945, and the HDM 45, I really don't think there's much of a difference based on what I've heard from all three of them. I think it really comes down to looks, as long as you're getting that 4-inch voice coil in your speaker. Now, there's one major downside to this speaker, and that's the price. These speakers come in at $2,000 each, which is significantly higher than other 15-inch speakers out there by JBL, by EV. But the thing is, at this weight of 48 pounds, the max SPL and sound that you're getting from the speakers, there really is no other speaker that can compare to the RCF right now. Now, I've turned the speaker around to talk about one of the other drawbacks that I would consider, and that's just the lack of input and controls on the back. Now, I've heard RCF has said that the reason they do this is because this is a professional speaker, truly a professional speaker. But a lot of the other speakers out there now, we're used to having multiple inputs, outputs, volume controls on the back, which is nice in case you want to use your speaker without a mixer. The HDM45 is nice that it has some built-in presets like close listening, far listening, that can kind of turn down or turn up the horn depending on how far the audience is from the speaker. But in general, it's not as much flexibility as you see from some of the other manufacturers. Now, there have been a couple things that have come up during my use of the speaker, and I specifically wanted to see if anybody out there had these issues or just wanted to comment on them overall. The first one that I've noticed, and this just might be my inexperience, but when I turn on the speaker, even when there's no audio cable plugged in, I'll notice some white noise and even a ringing sound that tends to get louder sometimes when I have the audio plugged in. So I'm going to turn the speaker on. Here's a PowerCon cable. You can see the speaker's now on. I'm not sure if it'll come through on the microphone, but when I bring it closer, there's this white noise and a slight ringing sound. From what I've looked online, it seems like this happens in all speakers, but I'm just curious if anybody else hears this sound coming from their speakers and it's just normal operation that I can expect. This is a small thing, but something I was always curious about. As you can see, there are 3 LEDs on the HDM45. This last LED that's not lit up right now is the limiter. You can see here it has preset and limiter. When the sound hits its limit on the speaker, I've noticed that light turn yellow and flicker yellow rather than the typical red that I'm used to seeing from other speakers. You're not going to be able to hear me talk, but I'm going to just turn these speakers up until they start flickering so you can see what the yellow looks like. Mainly, I'm just curious for any other HDM45 users out there if their limiters also turn yellow or if it's supposed to turn red like you see in most other speakers. Let me know what you think. So yeah, let me know what you think about that limiter flashing yellow. Usually it's red, but both my speakers go yellow, so I wonder if that's just a quirk about the HDM45. So all in all, I think for at this weight, at this size speaker, you really can't find anything that's gonna go louder or provide more sound than this RCF HDM45. Now, I think I was just being a little bit naive when I thought that a 15-inch speaker on a pole could potentially replace the need for a subwoofer, which this speaker cannot do. Do not expect that. But for being a two-way 15-inch speaker, you really cannot beat the amount of sound and the portability you get from this speaker. Hopefully that was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions or if you have any answers to some of the things that I've been trying to troubleshoot with these speakers. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.